We got that on film, you know.
I don't care. Hi, I'm Avalon.
I'm Sabrina.
And welcome to our channel, Fun and Friends, where
Yes.
we read books and you
Talk and answer questions. Eat.
Give you a snippet of our life, I guess.
Yep. A dog.
Oh yeah, and lots of dogs.
Lots of dogs.
Lots of dogs. Yeah. Welcome to chapter, what are we reading?
6.
6.
This was a long one. It's going to be a long chapter.
Yeah, so if you have to use the bathroom, please go use it now. Buckle
your
in.
snacks.
Get your sneaky snacks and
Drinks.
Yeah. This is kind of going to be like Endgame, like 3 hours long, can't use the bathroom.
Nope.
Stuck in your seat. No, I'm just kidding. You can pause the video at any time.
Do whatever you need to do.
Do whatever you need to do. Anyway, welcome
on
to
chapter 6 now.
Yeah, so you ready
Welcome.
for your amazing recap?
Of chapter 5.
Yep, it was pretty straightforward.
The only thing I remember from chapter 5 is that we meet Alaric, the teacher, the new European history teacher.
I know,
And
that's literally the only thing that you would remember because you love Alaric. So
I'm Team Alaric.
Not for Elena though.
No, but for her aunt.
What was going on with Elena and Catherine?
Elena and Catherine.
Not Catherine. Caroline. Nothing with Catherine.
There's some cattiness going on. Yeah, you got me saying Catherine. Caroline is planning something to get back at Elena. Like, she's mentioned how this school year is going to be completely different than the other school years. So she's plotting something, but we just don't know what yet. But Elena's, like, sniffing it out.
And then Catherine also tried to convince her to do what?
Caroline?
Caroline, sorry. My bad. My bad. They're both C's.
Yeah. Caroline, what does she convince her to try to do?
Everyone thinks that Stefan murdered people.
Oh,
so.
yeah. So she's trying to convince that Elena's dating the murderer? Well, partially that.
Yeah.
But...
And then Alaric was like, hey, everybody, let's go talk about our feelings at my house.
Oh, yeah, at his place. And he gave everyone the address, and everyone's like, okay. But we think that it's because he's
trying to weed out who the vampire is. Because in the TV show, he was a vampire hunter. So we can weed out vampires by seeing who can come in the house and who can't.
Exactly. Because you have to be invited to come in. So that way he can figure out who killed him.
Technically, if you say, why don't you come to my place,
It's an invitation to the property, but not into, like, the physical house.
I don't know. I feel like that would be an invitation. In my mind, that would be an invitation. I'd be like, okay, I can go inside now.
Yeah, I would think so.
No, I don't know. Anyway.
Nice.
Your theories.
Oh, we added a theory.
Oh, we should also put that Alaric is a vampire hunter.
Oh, yeah.
There, but, winner.
Well, we'll add that. So, Meredith's going to get killed off. Seymour Bonnie's powers develop. Catherine is still alive somewhere. And Robert will get killed off as well.
Wow, we're going to go kill off a bunch of people.
A lot of people died in
We're going to Game of Thrones these people.
Basically.
We'll have a Red Wedding episode. Everyone's just going to die.
I never saw, like, the last 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, so don't say anything.
That wasn't, like, the first couple of seasons, though.
I still don't remember.
Okay.
I was in South Carolina when I was trying to pay for HBO. $15 a month.
We'll have to do, you can show me Mean Girls, and I can show you Game of Thrones, because I have all the episodes.
I got DVD? Who has DVDs anymore?
Yeah, digital copies.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Chapter 6. Stefan sat in the Gilbert living room, agreeing politely with whatever Aunt Judith was saying. The older woman was uncomfortable having him there. You didn't need to be a mind reader to know that, but she was trying, and so Stefan was trying too. He wanted Elena to be happy. Elena. Even if he wasn't looking at her, he was aware of her more than anything else in the room. Her living presence beat against his skin like sunlight against closed eyelids. When he actually let himself turn to face her, it was the sweet shock to all of his senses. He loved her so much, he never saw her as Catherine anymore. He had almost forgotten how much she looked like the dead girl. In any case, there were many differences. Elena had the same gold hair and creamy skin, the same delicate features as Catherine, but there was that's where the resemblance ended. Her eyes looking violet in the firelight just now but normally a blue spark of lapis
Laluzi.
were neither timid nor childlike as Catherine's had been. On the contrary, they were windows into her soul, which shone.
Cute.
Oh, you like my little temporary tattoo that I put on for my kids?
It's cute. I just noticed it.
Yeah, it's so shimmery.
It is.
I have one on the counter if you want one.
Yes.
Okay. Here, should I show them what it looks like?
Yeah. We just break.
Oh, sorry. There we go. It's like a gold temporary tattoo.
Sure. I love it. I just noticed it when I looked
We
down
we were learning about India and about henna tattoos, and so I got like some temporary tattoos for them to put on.
I love henna. Anyways.
Anyway, back to it. On the contrary, there were windows to her soul, which shone like an eager flame behind them. Elena was Elena, and her image had replaced Catherine's gentle ghost in her heart. But her very strength had made her love dangerous. He hadn't been able to resist her last week. Bless you. She'd offered him her blood. Granted, he might not have died without it, but it would have been far too soon for Elena's own safety. For the 100th time, his eyes moved over Elena's face, searching for the telltale signs of change. Was that creamy skin a little paler? Was her expression slightly more remote? They would have to be more careful from now on. He would have to be more careful. Make sure to feed often to satisfy himself with animals so that he wouldn't be tempted. Never let the need get too strong. Now that he had thought of it, he was hungry right now. The dry ache, the burning, was spreading through his upper jaw, whispering through his veins and capillaries. He should be out in the woods, senses alert to catch the singlest crackle of dry twigs, muscles ready for the chase. Not here by fire, watching the tracery of blue veins on Elena's throat. The slim throat turned as Elena looked at him. Do you want to go to the party tonight? We can take Aunt Judith's car, she said. But you ought to stay for dinner first, said Aunt Judith quickly. We can pick up something on the way. Elena meant that they could pick something up for her, Stephen thought. He himself could chew and swallow ordinary food if he had to, though it did him no good. He had long since lost any taste for it. No, his appetites were more particular now, he thought, and if they went to this party, it would mean hours before he could feed. But he nodded in agreement with Elena. If you want to, he said. She did want to. She was set on it. He'd seen this from the beginning. All right, I'd better go change. He followed her to the base of the stairway. Wear something with a high neck, a sweater, he told her in a voice too low to carry. She glanced through the doorway to the empty living room, then said, It's all right. They've almost healed, you see? She tugged the lacy collar down, twisting her head to one side. Stephen stared, memorized at the 2 marks on the fine-grained skin. They were very light, translucent burgundy color, like much watered wine. He sank his teeth and forced his eyes away. Looking much longer at that would drive him crazy. That wasn't what I meant, he said briskly. The shining veil of her hair fell over the marks again, hiding them. Oh. Come in. As they did, walking into the room, conversation stopped. Elena looked at the faces towards them, at the curious, furtive eyes and the wary expressions, not the kind of looks she was used to getting when she made an entrance. It was another student who opened the door for them. A large salesman was nowhere in sight, but Catherine was seated on a bar stool and showed off her legs to the best of her advantage. She gave Elena a mock look that made some remark to a boy on her right. He laughed. Elena had felt her smile start to go painful, while a flush crept up towards her face. Then a familiar voice came to her. Elena, Stephen, over here. Gratefully, she spotted Bonnie sitting with Meredith and Ed Goff in a love seat in the corner. She and Stephen settled into the large ottoman opposite them, and she heard conversation start to pick up around the room. So apparently, it wasn't to keep
vampires out,
because somebody just invited him in.
Yeah. Oh, no. And you said Catherine instead of Caroline.
Did I?
You did.
Man, this is going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. By tacit agreement, no one mentioned the awkwardness of Elena and Stephen's arrival. Elena was determined to pretend that everything was as usual, and Bonnie and Meredith were backing her. You look great, said Bonnie warmly. I love that red sweater. She does look nice, doesn't she, Ed? Said Meredith, and Ed, looking vaguely startled, agreed. So your class was invited to this too? Elena said to Meredith. I thought maybe it was just 7th period. I don't know if invited was the word, replied Meredith dryly, considering that participation is half of our grade. Do you think he was serious about that? He couldn't have been serious, put in Ed. Elena shrugged. He seemed serious to me. Where's Ray? She asked Bonnie. Ray. Oh, Ray. I don't know. Around here somewhere, I suppose. There's a lot of people here. It was true the Ramsey living room was packed, and from what Elena could see from the crowd followed into the dining room, the front parlor, and probably the kitchen as well. Elbows kept brushing Elena's hair as the people circulated behind her. What did Saltzman want with you after class? Stefan asked. Alaric, Bonnie corrected him primly. He wants us to call him Alaric. Oh, he was just being nice. He felt awful for... Ooh, sticky page. Making me relive that agonizing experience. He didn't know exactly how Mr. Tanner died, and he hadn't realized it was so sensitive. Of course, he's incredibly sensitive himself, so he understands what it's like. He's an Aquarius. Apparently, yeah. Bonnie has a thing for him, I think.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe it's just her witchy woo.
I mean, you have to know someone's birthday to know what sign they are, so.
This is true.
How would she find out what his birthday is? So she probably did some witchy thing on him.
Maybe. With the moon rising in the pickup lines, said Meredith under her breath, Bonnie, you don't believe that garbage, do you? He's a teacher. He shouldn't be trying that out on students. He wasn't trying anything out. He said exactly the same thing to Tyler and Sue Carlson. He said we should form a support group for each other or write an essay about that night and our feelings. He said that teenagers are very impressionable, and he doesn't want the tragedy to last and impact our lives. Oh, brother, said Ed, and Stefan turned to laugh into a cough. He wasn't amused, though, and his question to Bonnie hadn't been idle curiosity. Elena could tell. She could feel it radiating from him. Stefan felt about Alaric Saltzman the way most people in his room felt about Stefan, wary and mistrustful. It was strange of him acting as if the party was a spontaneous idea in our class, she said, responding unconsciously to Stefan's unspoken words, when obviously it was planned. What's even stranger is the idea that the school would hire a teacher without telling him how the previous teacher died, said Stefan. Everyone was talking about it. It must have been in the papers. But not all the details, Bonnie said firmly. In fact, there are things the police still haven't let out because they think it might help catch the killer. For instance, she dropped her voice. Do you know what Mary said? Dr. Feinberg was talking to a guy who did the autopsy, the medical examiner, and he said there was no blood left in the body at all, not a single drop. Elena felt a wind blow through her as she stood once again in the graveyard. She couldn't speak, but Ed said, Where'd it go? Well, all over this floor, I suppose, said Bonnie calmly. All over the altar and everything. That's what the police are investigating now. But it's unusual for a corpse not to have any blood left. Usually there's some that settles down on the underside of the body. Postmortem lividity, it's what it's called. It looks like big purple bruises. What's wrong? Your incredible sensitivity has me about ready to throw up, said Meredith in a strangled voice. Could we possibly talk about something else? You weren't the one with blood all over you, Bonnie began, but Stefan interrupted her. Have the investigators come up with any conclusions from what they've learned? Are they closer to finding the killer? I don't know, said Bonnie. And then she brightened. That's right, Elena. You said you knew. Shut up, Bonnie, said Elena desperately. If there were ever a place not to discuss this, it was a crowded room full of people who hated Stefan. Bonnie's eyes widened, then she nodded, subsiding. Elena could not relax, though. Stefan hadn't killed Mr. Tanner, and yet the same evidence that would lead to Damon could easily lead to him, and would lead to... It needs to go the opposite way.
What?
That's a sombrero.
Fine.
Sorry, I have a friend who's helping me out with a project. All right, back to the book. and would lead him because no one she knew she and would lead to him because no one but she and Stefan knew of Damon's existence. He was out there somewhere in the shadows, waiting for his next victim. Maybe waiting for Stefan or her. I'm hot, she said abruptly. I think we should go see what kind of refreshments Dr. Alaric has provided. Stefan started to rise, but Elena waved him back down. He wouldn't have had any use for potato chips and punch, and she wanted to be alone for a few minutes, to be moving instead of sitting, to calm herself. Being with Meredith and Bonnie had given her a false sense of security. Leaving them, she once again confronted the sidelong glances and suddenly turned backs. This time it made her angry. She moved through the crowd with deliberate insolence, holding any eye she accidentally caught. I'm already notorious, she thought. I might as well be brazen, too.
Just give them the whole package.
Yep.
The whole shebang.
Super brazen. She was hungry. In the Ramsey dining room, someone had set up an arrangement of finger foods, and it looked surprisingly good. Elena took a paper plate and then dropped a few carrots on it, ignoring the people around the bleached oak table. She wasn't going to speak to them unless they spoke first. She gave her full attention to the refreshments, leaning past people to select cheese wedges and Ritz crackers, reaching in front of them to pluck grapes, obstinately looking up and down the whole array to see if there was anything she had missed. She succeeded in riveting somebody's attention, something she knew without raising eyes. She bit delicately down on a breadstick, holding it between her teeth like a pencil, and then turned from the table. Mind if I have a bite? Shock snapped her eyes open, froze her breath. Her mind jammed, refusing to acknowledge what was going on and leaving her helpless, vulnerable in the face of it. But though rational thought had disappeared, her senses went right on recording mercilessly. Dark eyes dominated her field of vision, a whiff of some kind of cologne in her nostrils.
Tyler.
Two long fingers tilting her chin up. Damon leaned in.
Damon! Damon! I was right.
Man, getting all excited over there.
I like it when my predictions are right.
Yeah, but you also said Tyler. You're just throwing names out there.
You said dark eyes.
Might as well throw Alaric out there, and then we'll throw Stefan in the mix.
No,
and, Mr. Tanner.
Then the description was dark eyes. Like, oh, Tyler has dark eyes. But anyways, I was right. I was Damon. Your first guess is always right, so...
Damon leaned in and neatly and precisely bit off the other end of the breadstick.
Ooh, he is just cocky.
In that moment, their lips were only inches apart. He was leaning in for a second bite before Elena's wits revived enough to throw her backwards, her head grabbing the last crisp bread and tossing it away. He caught it in midair in a virtuoso display of reflex. His eyes were still on hers. Elena caught in a breath at last and opened her mouth. She wasn't sure what for. To scream, probably, to warn all these people to run out into the night. Her heart was pounding like a trip hammer, her vision blurred. Easy, easy. He took the plate from her and then somehow got a hold of her wrist. He was holding it tightly, the way Mary had felt for Stefan's pulse. As she continued to stare and gasped, he stroked it with his thumb, as if comforting her. Easy, it's all right. What are you doing here? She thought. The scene around her seemed eerily bright and unnatural. It was like one of those nightmares when everything is ordinary, just like a waking life, and then suddenly something grotesque happens. He was going to kill them all. Elena, are you okay? Sue Carlson was next to her, grabbing her shoulder. I think she choked on something, Damon said, releasing Elena's wrist. But she's all right now. Why don't you introduce us? He was going to kill them all. Elena, this is Damon. Sue spread an apologetic hand, and Damon finished it for her. Smith! He lifted the paper cup towards Elena. La vida! What are you doing here? She whispered. He's a college student, Sue volunteered when it became apparent that Damon wasn't going to answer. From the University of Virginia, was it, William and Mary? Amongst other places, Damon said, still looking at Elena. He hadn't glanced at Sue once. I like to travel. The world had snapped into place again around Elena, but it was a chilling world. There were people on every side watching his exchange with fascination, keeping her from speaking freely. But they were also keeping her safe. For whatever reason, Damon was playing a game, pretending to be one of them. And while the masquerade went on, he wouldn't do anything in front of a crowd, she hoped. A game, but he was making up the rules. He was standing there in the Ramsey dining room, playing with her. He's just down for a few days, Sue was continuing hopefully. Visiting friends, did you say, or relatives? Yes, said Damon. You're lucky to be able to take off whenever you want, Elena said. She didn't know what was possessing her to make her try and unmask him. Luck has very little to do with it, said Damon. Do you like dancing? What's your major? He smiled at her. American folklore. Did you know, for instance, that a mole on the neck means that you're wealthy? Do you mind if I check? I mind, a voice came from behind Elena. It was clear, cold, and quiet. Elena had heard Stefan speak in this tone only once, when she found Tyler trying to assault her in the graveyard. Damon's fingers stilled on her throat and released the spell. She stepped back. But do you matter? He said. The two of them faced each other under the faintly flickering yellow light of a brass chandelier. Elena was aware of the layers of her own thoughts, like a parfait. Everyone staring. This would be better than the movies. I didn't realize Stefan was taller. There's Bonnie and Meredith wondering what's going on. Stefan's angry, but he's still weak, still hurting. If he goes for Damon now, he'll lose. And in front of all these people, her thoughts came to a chattering halt as everything fell into place. That's what Damon was here for, to make Stefan attack him, apparently unprovoked. No matter what happened after that, he won. If Stefan drove him away, it would be more proof of Stefan's tendency towards violence, more evidence for Stefan's accusers, and if Stefan lost the fight, it would mean his life, thought Elena. Oh, Stefan, he's so much stronger than you right now. Please don't do it. Don't play into his hands. He wants to kill you. He's looking for a chance. She made her limbs move, though they were stiff and awkward like a marionette. Stefan, she said, taking his cold hand into hers, let's go home. She could feel the tension in his body like an electric current running through his skin. At this moment, he was completely focused on Damon, and the light in his eyes was like a fire reflecting back a dagger blade. She didn't recognize him in this mood, didn't know him. He frightened her. Stefan, she said, calling to him as if he were lost in the fog and couldn't find him. Stefan, please. And slowly, she felt him respond. She heard him breathe and felt his body go off alert, clicking down into some level of lower energy. The deadly concentration of his mind was diverted when he looked at her and saw her. All right, he said, looking at her eyes. Let's go. She kept her hands on him as they turned to walk away, one clasped in his hand, the other tucked inside his arm. By sheer force of will, she managed not to look over her shoulder as they walked away, but the skin on her back tingled and crawled as if expecting a stab of a knife. Instead, she heard Damon's low, ironical voice. And have you heard of kissing a redhead girl cures fever blisters? And then Bonnie's outrageous, flattered laughter. On the way out, they finally ran into their host. Leaving so soon? Alaric said. I haven't even had a chance to talk to you yet. He looked both eager and reproachful, like a dog that knows perfectly well it's not going to be taken for a walk, but wags anyway. Elena felt worry blossom in her stomach for him and everyone in the house. She and Stefan were leaving them to Damon. She just have to hope an earlier assessment was right. He wanted to continue with the masquerade. Right now, she had enough to do getting Stefan out of here before he changed his mind. I'm not feeling very well, she said, and she picked up her purse where it lay on the ottoman. Sorry. She increased the pressure on Stefan's arm. It would take very little to get him to turn back and head for the dining room right now. I'm sorry, said Alaric. Goodbye. They were on the threshold before she saw the little slip of violet paper stuck to the inside pocket of her purse. She pulled it out and unfolded it by reflex, her mind on other things. There was writing on it, plain and bold, unfamiliar, just 3 lines. She read them and felt the world rock. This was too much. She couldn't deal with anything more. What is it? Said Stefan. Nothing. She thrust the bit of paper back into their side pocket, pushed it down with her fingers. It's nothing, Stefan. Let's go inside. They stepped onto the driving needles of rain. What could be in the note? I wonder.
I wonder if Damon put that note there.
Well, when would he have put it there?
Right before he surprised Elena.
Just like whooshed over, put it in there, whooshed back?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because he's that fast. Why not?
I was wondering if maybe it was Sue Carlson because she was standing next to her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she like, because Damon was, I feel like Damon was semi-mind controlling her and telling her to like play along with his little charade and help like build him up. Yeah. So I'm wondering if he gave the note to her to put in Elena's purse.
Probably. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Damon has that control.
He does.
I'm surprised to see him like at the gathering. I was thinking we would find him in like a different scenario.
Yeah.
But I'm excited that he's there.
Yeah.
Things about to get lively.
Well, and I'm surprised that Alaric isn't showing any vampire hunter tendencies yet.
No, yeah, I think he's sitting back and waiting.
Yeah.
I think he's just really observing the whole dynamic and the magnitude of everything and everyone right now. And then we'll start seeing like more vampire hunter tendencies. I
wouldn't have invited everybody in the school into my house if I was a vampire hunter, just saying.
Well, technically it's not his house. It's like his aunt's house or like it's a friend's house.
Yeah, but still, I wouldn't have invited all those people in there if I was a vampire hunter. That just doesn't sound like something. So maybe he's not a vampire hunter.
Maybe he's not.
I don't know.
But I think he knows stuff though. Like of like vampires and werewolves and like their folklore.
Yeah.
I think he knows that pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have much predictions.
What do you think's on the note?
Was 3 lines.
3 lines. She didn't want to show Stefan.
I think it was a prediction. Like someone's predicting something for her.
Maybe.
Or like something maybe about like they know who actually killed the teacher. Like Stefan's not in danger.
Or maybe it was like Stefan is a vampire or something like that. Or, you know, something like that. I don't know.
Or like a warning.
You are going to die young. It's the Grim.
Basically, yeah. I think something like that's on the note. I do think that we should put that we think that Alaric could be a vampire hunter.
You want to put that on the theory board?
Yeah, we'll add that to the theory board. Mm-hmm. I think he still could be. I think he's feeling it out, though.
Especially because he seems very interested in everything that happened
in the school around that
event.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think Damon we're gonna see him pop up a lot more.
Yeah, I think he's gonna continue pushing to get with Elena.
Definitely. Absolutely.
He's such a flirt.
I know.
He's so ballsy.
He's dangerous.
He's so ballsy coming up to her and like biting off the end of the breadstick.
I don't know.
Like if that was me, I would have been like, what the hell?
I would have smacked the bitch. I would have smacked someone.
I would have been like, what the hell?
Excuse you. You're in my space.
Yeah. So freaking ballsy.
It is. It really, really is. Yeah. I don't have any prediction other than the teacher, Alaric, and seeing more of Damon. I think he's going to make an announcement like, I'm sticking around, brother.
I'm sticking around. I'm still going to try, brother.
Exactly.
I am really surprised that Elena was able to calm him down at the party.
Mm-hmm.
Because, especially after everything that happened, like throwing him into the well, him almost dying, him, like all of that, like, I don't know, I'd be pretty livid.
I would be too.
And so, like, yes, like, Gary could probably, my husband, could probably calm me down if I was pissed, but not like that much. Like, I feel like if somebody almost killed me, I would want to, you know.
Hurt them.
Yeah, not hurt them, but, like, definitely, I would definitely have some choice words.
Yeah.
for them instead of being like, oh, honey, let's just go. We're going to go home.
Like, it's okay. Come on.
No, I would have definitely some choice words.
I would definitely probably cuss them out.
That's what I meant by choice words.
Before I leave.
A couple of 4-letter words, maybe a couple 5-letter words starting with a B.
Yeah, and some vulgarities in there. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got, folks.
Actually, that wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I thought we had a few more pages, but it was good. We're in 30 minutes, so.
Yep, and that's about what the normal one is. So,
yeah,
actually,
we did good.
We did good. And we'll see if we can get the, well, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
We'll decide. We'll decide. We'll see.
We'll see.
There might be some surprise coming on this week, but we'll have to see. We got a couple of friends that could maybe
join us for a session, but we'll see.
We'll see. We have to ask them if they're feeling up to it.
Yeah.
So maybe.
But just know that there will be a surprise in the future at some point.
Pretty soon.
If it's not this week, then maybe next week. For sure, you'll get a